From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Sulaiman Aledo.
Hello and welcome tonight. Chief of Naval Staff insists Nigeria will not yield to terrorists whether or not the agreed ceasefire succeeds. Political drumbeat ahead of the 2015 elections gets louder. APC holds rally in Port Harcourt, insists on change in government. Aspirants besiege PDP Secretariat in Abuja to beat deadline for collection of expression of interest and nominations forms. Islamic militants under heavy bombardment in Iraq as government and Kurdish forces regain control of territories.
And on Business News tonight, quoted companies of the Nigeria Stock Exchange released their quarter earnings.
On sports news, Nigeria's Super Falcons outclass bitter rivals Cameroon 2-0 to win a record 7th African Women Championship title.
We start off tonight with an appeal by internally displaced people in Adamawa State who are appealing to the federal government to urgently put an end to the violence ravaging the northeast region. While confirming that the insurgents actually kidnapped women a few days ago, residents who fled their villages are asking government to make their communities safe enough for them to return and live their normal lives.
The hustle and bustle in Yola, the state capital, gives a first-time visitor a sense of normalcy. But the truth, however, is that 2 out of the 21 local government areas are currently under siege by the Boko Haram sect. The 2 local governments are Madagali and Michika, located at the northern part of the state, bordering Borno State and neighboring Cameroon. The council chairman of Madagali is sending an SOS to the government.
What we are requesting the federal government, I know that the federal government is putting effort. We want the federal government to put more effort. Let our people go back to their houses. That is what we want. If we go back to our houses, whatever happened there, we shall recoup ourselves, and then life will start going on. The first thing that we want from the federal government is let the federal government ensure we go back to our houses.
The chairman is unable to confirm the abduction of women in his local government, but one of the women here can say she narrowly escaped being kidnapped herself. The time the insurgents came, I was actually at home. I ran and hid my children under the bed, and they did not see us. But those found outside were taken away. I later peeped out shortly after they left the room and saw over 50 women being taken away by their abductors to unknown destinations. It is indeed a heart-wrenching story. In order to escape attacks by the militants, residents have either fled to neighboring Cameroon or are now hiding in caves.
Beloved country, Nigeria.
This other man fled to Yola from Goza in Borno State, while painting a rather bleak picture, is asking the federal government to take the ceasefire initiative seriously.
I am crying to my leaders, my country, please, to put more emphasis or to bring peace or to make a good dialogue with those Boko Haram people.
The Adamawa state government says that it is worried about the attacks in the state and promises to do all it can to bring the attacks to a halt.
Now, the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Usman Jibrin, says that the Nigerian military will continue to protect the nation's territorial integrity against Boko Haram insurgents. Vice Admiral Jibrin, who is speaking during a visit to Nigerian Navy shipyard Pathfinder in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, also spoke about efforts being made to curtail piracy and the Bakassi issue.
You know, once the federal government had directed that the military should maintain her present posture or position by the ceasefire, the federal government or the military adhere to that directives. But unfortunately, the other party, the Boko Haram, have reneged on what ought to be an agreement between the parties. So what do you expect? Of course, the military, under the leadership of the federal government, has a duty to continue to defend the territorial integrity of this country to the extent that they have no hold on any part of Nigeria. I met the chief of Naval staff from Cameroon, and we discussed the issue peculiar to Bakassi, especially attacks on commercial shipping. And we resolved that we shall meet, and I've invited him that when we meet, we discuss on security within the Bakassi area to the extent that our forces can be allowed to deploy to ensure that acts of piracy is checked.
Well, still on security matters, experts have asked the federal government to exercise caution in the handling of the release of the kidnapped Chibok girls and the ceasefire talks with Boko Haram. The experts who were guests on our Saturday morning program, Sunrise, warned that it would be grievous if these issues were politicized. They also said the truce with the group will not work and asked the federal government to defeat it once and for all.
Unofficially, quietly, there's been a lot of these girls who have been released, not necessarily the Chibok girls. But I want to use this particular girl's example for us to know what we're dealing with here. Now, this girl, when we began to talk to her and debrief her, said no, they had not violated her, and they were so nice, and they were just fetching water in Sambisa Forest and all that. As I listened, I signaled the experts. They carried out tests the next day. And while we will never mention the name of this girl, and while we will never compromise her identity, I must mention that this girl was not only pregnant, but she was HIV positive.
Oh dear.
So how thoughtless can a country become when we begin to politicize issues like this and talk about a ceasefire to release the Chibok girls when we have not allowed the nation to know the depth and the extent to which things have worsened, as it were, in the battlefronts. So what are we asking for right now? Are we saying that when we get these girls back, if they are all HIV positive, then we are going to be rejoicing?
We are part of something that is happening globally, and we haven't seen it. ISIS, Al-Nusra, Ansardin, that is Ansardin in Mali, Al-Nusra in Libya, ISIS, the guys out there. Now you even have Al-Qaeda in India. They have one, AQIA. That's a new one. Of course, you know Akab, Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula, you know Akim, Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. You know, we are part of that whole unholy thing going on there, and which is dedicated to one thing, shedding human blood. You saw what ISIS is doing in Syria. They kill soldiers, behead them, and put their heads on sticks. You know, and that's what BH is copying here. Killed the guy, the Air Force guy who was flying, and put his head, you know, out there. So that's why we are perhaps solving the wrong problem. That's why we're thinking we can go and have a dialogue or a ceasefire. There's no ceasing and there's no firing. I mean, they're not interested in that until the only cure for this is to kill, you know, cut off the head of the snake. That's it.
Well, just as the experts are talking, countries are also speaking on this security matter. Chad says it believes the Nigeria government, or rather agreement with the Boko Haram sect, to free more than 200 kidnapped Nigerian schoolgirls will go ahead despite the breakdown of a truce, and adds that the key to the agreement is a prisoner swap. Mr. Musa Mohammed Dago, the number 2 official at Chad's foreign ministry, told Reuters News that it appears that some Boko Haram factions are refusing to abide by the deal brokered by the Chadian foreign minister with 2 representatives of the group and 2 Nigerian negotiators at meetings in Chad on September the 14th and 30th. Mr. Dago says that the 2 sides agreed verbally to a series of points summarized in a document he had seen, including the release of the schoolgirls and of jailed Boko Haram fighters. He says, quote, the starting condition of Boko Haram was the liberation of some of their members. That is the compensation, end of quote. The Chadian official adds that the specifics and the names and number of Boko Haram fighters still to be released had not yet been agreed. Mr. Dago still expects the girls to be freed, but does not give a time frame. In part two, after the break, aspirants jostle and in Port Harcourt, River State, for the nomination of interest form. Stay with us.